could ever have predicted this, is the rise of a race that was considered to be a backward race. And this is the race of the Atrak, the Turks, the Atrak. Our Prophet ﷺ prophesied that this race would become dominant and that they would conquer the Arabs. Now, who are the Atrak? The Atrak are a group of races. It's not just one race. Within the Turk, there are many races. It's like saying Arab. There are many Arab sub-races. It's one of the categories of human races. The Atrak are a group of races. You can say they are the cousins of the Mongolians. That is why the Turkish language and the Mongolian language, they share many similarities. They are from a land that is what is now, we call it Turkmenistan. Turkmenistan were the Xinjiang provinces. Okay, that is the land of the Atrak. And the Atrak came from there and they eventually conquered what is now modern Turkey. And it was called Turkey because the Atrak came there. Before they came there, it wasn't called Turkey. For our Prophet ﷺ in Medina to predict that that far away race is going to rise up and eventually dominate. What is the Ottoman Empire other than Turkish, right? This is one of those miraculous predictions. And by the way, these ahadith were compiled centuries before the rise of the Ottoman Empire. You will find manuscripts, those who deny the authenticity of hadith, you will find manuscripts written in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th century predicting the rise of the Atrak, and the Turks rose up 500 years ago, that's it. And there are many, many ahadith. The most famous amongst them, and these are also in Sahih Muslim, some of them, and there's a genre of hadith. The most famous amongst them, the Prophet ﷺ used alliteration. Alliteration means he said things that sound the same and they have a level of eloquence. Utrukul atraka ma tarakukum. Utrukul atraka ma tarakukum. Leave the Turks as long as they leave you. Don't fight the Turks. Leave the Turk as long as they tarakukum, they leave you alone. Because when you will fight them, you will lose. And they will win over you. The prediction of Turk here is the Muslim Turks eventually, right? So eventually, this group of people, they came, amongst them were the Seljuks. So within the Turkish race, there were many famous dynasties. The most famous of the earliest dynasties was the Seljuk dynasty, Alp Arslan. Alp Arslan was the one who came to power, and he was the first of the Turkish people to basically get a base in the lands of Islam, and they converted to Islam. And of course his main vizier was Nizam al-Mulk, the famous Nizam al-Mulk. So that was Alp Arslan. The Seljuk Empire is not the same as the Ottoman Empire. They are both Turkic, but the two of them biologically are different. So the first Turkish empire was the Seljuk Empire. They were magnificent, they came, they conquered, and then they fizzled out. And then another group came, the Osmanlis, we call them the Ottomans, right? Those of you that are watching the Ertugrul series, which is a mythic, romanticization of that, but it is, the kernel of history is there. So the rise of the Osman tribe, Osmanli, Ottoman is the children of Osman. This is the second prediction, and our Prophet ﷺ predicted that this empire and this group would become the dominant one, and that is exactly what happened. That when the Turks came, they eventually took over the Muslim land, and in the early part of the 16th century, 15 or so, they requested from the final remnants of the Abbasid Empire to hand over the Khilafah to them, and so they then acquired the Khilafah. And from around 1500 CE up until 1927, as you know, the Ottoman Empire was the caliphate of Muslim lands. And it was the only empire that claimed to be the Khalifa that were non-Arab. Before this point, the Seljuks never claimed to be Khalifa. The Seljuks were a rural dynasty. They never said they were the Khalifa. The Seljuks were in power when the Abbasids were the Khalifa. And they were a powerful dynasty, but they never said they were the Khalifa. And the Ottomans were the first non-Arab to say that they were the Khalifa of Islam.